then if you want just to talk, then you can unmute it. Great. So I think we can start. James, what you think?
Yes, certainly. I'm ready whenever.
Yeah, my idea was just to start with some organizational issues, because as you know that we are doing this this webinar free today, so we're using the free version of Zoom. That's why after 40 minutes the translation will be stopped. But then you may use the same link. You may join us with the same password to log in, whatever you've been using before, and join the webinar again. Okay. Okay, so James, when I have the webinars and they ask, okay, I'm used to receiving the answer back, but with webinar it's silence. And when I say yes, then I say okay, yes. So it's just in case you have guys any questions, you may just type them or just mute the mic and say, as we said before. Okay, so I'll start with the introduction. I'll introduce myself and then introduce our guest today, because just to gain your credibility with whom you're going to talk today. So my name is Katerina Davgalyuk, and I'm the founder of, I'm just simultaneously I'm looking at the chat. Pardon? Someone's talking. Okay, good. So, guys, someone's talking. So someone didn't unmute the mic. Who is it? Let's see. So Natalia, please mute your mic. Наталья, здравствуйте. Микрофон выключите, пожалуйста, на некоторое время, потому что мы слышим тогда, как вы разговариваете. Наталья. Okay, so I think we can continue. What I've been saying, I've been saying that, yes, my name is Katerina, and I'm the founder of the language arts of the language school, which is called Language Arts, that is located in Kyiv, but actually we are working with a lot of Ukrainian cities and also abroad. I'm the former lecturer of Donetsk National University. I'm the alumna of Ukrainian Social Academy. I'm the scholarship holder of the School for the Social Entrepreneurs in Germany, which is called the Do School, that is quite famous. I've been working as a teacher for almost 8+ years, let's say. So yeah, there is much more. And one more interesting thing about myself was an interpreter of Toto Cutugno. If someone knows, this is a very famous Italian singer. So who's singing Lasciatemi cantare, if someone knows. So there is much more information, but I don't want to talk much about myself. I just want to talk more about our guest today. So actually, James, I know that you're quite shy and that you didn't tell me all the information about yourself. I know it, but I monitored your LinkedIn profile, so I know more about you. But firstly, I want to tell our participants how actually we met, because it's a very interesting story, right? So how we got acquainted. James actually was born in the United Kingdom, but currently he is living in Sweden. I was born in Ukraine, and I currently am living in Ukraine. Nothing changed. But actually, the funniest thing that we met in Austria, in Vienna. So that was the third country where we met. That was the conference for the countries of the Eastern Partnership, and that was also the countries from the European Union, Turkey and Russia, right? James, if I'm not wrong, I enumerated all the countries that participated. Yep. Yes, and so we were together. We were working together in one group, And after that, we started communicating, and we've been communicating since that time. Then in winter, James came to Kiev, yes, and he was actually supposed to come to Kiev also in April, but 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 it didn't happen. But thanks to Zoom and to all these technologies that we can communicate also, not offline, but actually online, but it's also quite good that we can use this opportunity too. So who actually James is? You see, I've prepared the info about you. James actually was working as a head of the lecture committee, and he was the vice president in the Association of Foreign Affairs in Lund, that's Sweden. He was a security analyst. Please correct me if I say something wrong. Yes.
All correct so far.
but I think I'm prepared. So he was the security analyst in global warning system. Currently, he is working as a teacher of English and the humanities in Cambridge Education Group in on-campus Lund. He was born in the United Kingdom, as I've already mentioned, and for the past 5 years, he has been living in Sweden. Phew. I'm ready. So, right? Am I right, James? Am I correct?
Yes, exactly. So I've lived in the UK for 21 years. Well, I lived when I was younger, and then I moved to Sweden 5 years ago. And I've been here ever since. I'm very happy here. And as you said, yeah, I'm teaching English mainly for this IELTS test, the test that you need to take if you want to study abroad, particularly in Sweden. And I also teach a couple of other things, but yeah, we can discuss that later on if you want to.
Okay, great, good. So we have already started with you the question. We will pass to the question that I've prepared, right? That's connected with the British culture and some cultural aspects, yes, and some concepts and so. But to start with, could you tell me, and could you tell to all our participants, how is it going right now with the situation with COVID-19 in Sweden? Because Sweden is the country that hasn't closed the borders, hasn't implemented this lockdown as almost all the countries in the world have done. So how is it going right now, and what restrictions, what measures are taken right now?
Yeah, so it's much more limited than in other countries. So the only real measures in place, at least where I am in Sweden, is that you can't have social gatherings of more than 50 people, which of course seems like a lot anyway. But things have changed, of course. People's attitudes have changed. So nobody meets in very large groups anymore. And if we do meet, we make sure we meet outside. But in terms of a lockdown, we've had no lockdown at all.
Mm-hmm.
I've of course spoken to my family in the UK because, like in Ukraine, they had a lockdown for around a month, or maybe even longer than a month, where they couldn't even meet with one other person. They had to stay completely inside. So in that sense, it's been a very different experience for us in Sweden. I don't know whether it's been handled better or not. That's maybe not for me to say, but yeah, it's certainly been a very different experience. And now nothing has really changed in the past month or so, except that maybe the borders are going to start opening a bit more for people to, certainly from the Nordic countries, to come in and visit.
Like, do you guys wear masks, or do you have this? Because here, like in all buildings, almost in all offices, we have to have this sanitizers, masks, sometimes gloves. Gloves are not obligatory, but people wear them too right now. So how is it in your country? Do you wear them or not? Or it depends on the person. For example, if someone wants, so nobody prevents. So how is that?
So we have sanitizers everywhere. I mean, in every building really, but almost nobody is wearing masks. So if you went out on the street now, I would say you could see quite a few people on the street, and I think you'd struggle to see one mask if you walked for 5 or 10 minutes. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's quite relaxed, really.
And what about school, like institution, kindergartens? They continue working?
Yes, they have stayed open. The high schools have closed. So from, I think, 15 or 16 upwards, they have all closed, and universities have of course closed as well, or have gone online at least. But yeah.
So, but actually, the high schools were closed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But these are the only like thing that was closed. This is the only thing that was closed.
Yeah, exactly. That was the only thing really, but not lower schools. No.
But what? But why schools? Why schools? Why not offices? Because according to the statistics,
Oh,
right? Yeah. You know, like people who can catch actually this disease, right? They're just the middle-aged people. So it's not about the students and the pupils. So why is it about schools? So. Mm-hmm.
I think, most offices have closed as well because people are encouraged to work online. But I don't know if it was made mandatory or not. But yeah, I would say, if possible, if you can work online, then employers almost make sure. So, for example, I can go into my office because there's only 3 of us who work at the company, so I don't see anybody. But my boss is working from home, and the other employee is also working from home. So, yeah, so we.
Okay, and what about you? What do you like more? And then we'll come to our question, because
Yeah,
when I started talking, I'm quite interested in what's going on in some other countries, just to, to also to compare with our experience, how's it going in our country. So it's quite interesting to listen to. And what about you? What's preferable for you, to work offline or online? Because all these cases are right, they have advantages, and as for me, I mean, that's my opinion. So what about you? What's preferable for you?
I definitely prefer working face to face, because then I can see my students and see how they're interacting with me. And yeah, you also have a different dynamic, of course. Same with this webinar. It would be nice to see people like Natalia and Irina and who else is here? Katie, Anna, face to face, rather than, of course, on the webinar. But there are also advantages to online as well, of course, because I can relax. I've got my shorts on here. I don't look very formal, so maybe if dressed up.
There are even special suits. You can just put it on while you're working, and then you can sit in pajama with trousers, and here maybe just going like this right now, but nobody will know about it. So like this. Okay, great. I think that we can come to our questions, right? That I was preparing for you. So guys, and right now, while I'm looking for these questions, you may also ask James if you want any questions. It may be like random questions. You may ask whatever. While James is here, you may use this time just and as I said before, just to use the opportunity. Someone's asked, еще не начали? No, we have started. So I don't know why webinar. So one student is asking, Marina, do you hear me?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Irina is typing.
Irina is asking about whether we started the webinar or not.
Irina is already here.
Irina is already here, but maybe we have 2 Irinas because she's texting me also. We have several Irinas. No, it's I know one, and I know the second one too. So that's about Ditkovskaya Irina, I think. Yes, she's typing me. Maybe she can't join. I don't know whether you. So Irina. Okay, that's okay, right? Because great. Yes.
Maybe I can ask Natalia, Katie, Anna, and Irina. What made you decide to study English Do you do it for fun? Do you do it for your work? Or do you do it because you want to study in the future? What do you think, Natalia? Oh, sorry.
Natalia? Please unmute your mic. That was a good. Okay. Yeah, sometimes people, oh, for work, you see, oh, great, Natalia, very good. So you may use chat also. Okay, who else? Who else, guys?
Katie? For fun? Okay. Good. And Anna?
Hello,
Hello.
I'm studying English for maybe future work.
Yeah. Good.
And also here I'm with my husband, Evgeny. We sitting at the same computer.
Ah,
So
okay.
he can tell for what he study English too.
Yes,
Hello.
please. Hello, Evgeny.
I'm studying English for me, just to speak and listen and watch TV shows, films in original.
Yeah, good. And which TV shows do you want to watch in English?
Oh, it's Sopranos.
Oh, good. I love The Sopranos.
Yes, you too. It's the best show ever.
Yes, although I haven't finished season 6, so don't spoil anything for me.
Oh, really?
I haven't, no. How about you, Irina? Why are you studying English?
For work, for life, of course, because I didn't know how to live now without English. For travel, just knowing English, it makes your life much easier.
Definitely. It's made my life much easier.
That's true.
And Katie, did I ask you? Oh, you sent on the chat. Okay. And okay, one more question. Do you learn British English, or maybe Katie could answer this. Do you learn British English or American English?
Oh, that's the question.
What do you teach at your school, Katya?
Well, we teach everything. It's up to the students, but mostly people ask for American variant. I don't know why, but actually yes, maybe. I don't know what's the reason for that, but there is of course the difference in accents. For example, when you're listening to an American person and to a British person, you definitely hear the difference between the accents. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, by the way, do you hear this difference or not while you're talking, for example, to an American?
Do I? Definitely.
Yeah, you do.
I actually prepared a couple of things. I'll see if I can find it. Because there are a lot of differences between Brits and Americans. Obviously, the accent is one of them. Also, the way we communicate with each other is very different. I'm just going to shut my window. And also, anyone, if you want to ask a question or interrupt, or if I'm speaking too fast, just write in the chat and I can slow down or use different vocabulary for you. But what was your question again, Katya? Sorry. About Brits and Americans.
Yeah, I was asking whether you hear this difference like clearly, or it's just the same. Because for me, I mean, I can definitely say that this is from the United States. This person is from the United States. This one is from the UK, somewhere like London and so on. But and also that's the same about the Australian English, that New Zealand, like the English that is used in New Zealand and so on. So what about you? Because you're a native speaker, you're a native British English speaker. Let's say, yeah. So how is it?
Yeah, I can definitely hear. And also we use different words to mean the same thing. So I'm sure you've all heard about the fall semester or the fall term.
Yes.
Of course, in Britain, we would say the autumn instead. Also, when you're walking along by the road, in America, you would call that, of course, the sidewalk. But in Britain, we would call it the pavement. So make sure you walk on the pavement.
Oh, cool. Guys, sorry, James, just for interrupting. You might also make notes. You see, this is like very interesting thing that James is saying right now. You may make notes, yes, and just you'll see the difference between American and British English. So sidewalk, pavement. What was the first one that you mentioned?
The
fall and autumn. Fall and autumn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just name a couple more. I could continue if you want, but in America they would say the trash or the garbage, and we would say the rubbish. So my mum would tell me, James, can you take the rubbish out, please? And of course, in America they'd say, take the trash out. Or take out the trash.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Trash, rubbish, garbage. Mm-hmm.
And then you have gasoline in America, or in American, and we would say petrol. So for the car, we fill it up with petrol. And then speaking of the car, there's a lot of differences. So the front of the car that you lift up, where you see the engine, in British English we call that the bonnet, but in American English they would call it the hood of the car.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And then the back would be called, in American English, would be called the trunk, where you put all of your stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But we would call it the boot instead. So there are a number of different words that we use, and also some words that are more popular in British English are less popular in American English, which maybe I can discuss later on as well if you want.
Okay, but there is also a stereotype. Thanks, by the way, that's very interesting. But there is a stereotype that, for example, British people, they don't like Americans, and like because of the language, you know, because you share the same language, but everyone wants their language to be the best, you know, their language to be the best. So, is it true or not? So, or is it just a stereotype, you know, like every country has, for example?
I think it's a love-hate relationship. So we like them, but we also don't like them at the same time. And there's a famous saying by, I think he was a philosopher, George Bernard Shaw. He said that the UK and the United States are divided by a common language, so rather than united by a common language. So yeah, the fact that we both speak English creates more rivalry maybe than it does cooperation. But we like the Americans, but sometimes we think when they come over they're a bit too in your face and they take over rather than maybe being more reserved.
But I think, yeah, that's the cultural difference also, that they are quite, you know, open there. But sometimes Americans, if I'm not wrong, they may say like, yes, everything is fine, it's okay. But then, like, behind your back, it will be like completely different thing. So this is also some kind of peculiarity. And I think for the British culture, but please correct me if I am saying something wrong. So your culture is a bit reserved, right? So you are not so open. You know, for example, for our culture, for Ukrainian culture, we're quite open. Yes, we're quite open people. I mean, we welcome everyone. So, of course, not all people, but in general, I'm speaking about in general things. So, is it true or not? Is your culture really like reserved? Of course, it depends on the person, but if you speak in general.
I would say I agree with you. So we are much less open than some countries. For example, I would never, well, not never, but unless I knew someone very, very well, I probably wouldn't invite them into my home in the UK. Because it's just not done. Same in Sweden. No, I would be lucky if I've known someone 3 years, then maybe they'd invite me to their home.
No, not before 3 years.
Almost, it's like that. Yeah, so we're very strict, or not strict, but yeah, we have that culture where we are a bit reserved and we keep our boundaries, but at the same time we're quite open to speaking to people. We will make conversation maybe more than some other European countries, and I think we're more informal as well than a lot of countries. So obviously we don't have the formal use, we don't have vous, and it means that if I met a manager or someone who's my superior, I wouldn't say hello sir or hello madam. I would probably call them by their name and maybe have a discussion and say, you know, how's everything going for you? And that would be perfectly fine in British culture, but maybe in German culture, you would not.
Yes, yeah, you would. Yes, yes. There is a hierarchy, right?
Exactly. Yes. But no, we are quite reserved. And also, if you take the example of Britain and the United States, if you're on public transport, if you're on the train or if you're on the bus, in Britain, you would never start, or maybe occasionally, but you wouldn't really make conversation with the person next to you. You would try not to take up too much space, and you know, if you were listening to your headphones, you'd make sure no one else could hear them. Whereas in the United States, I went maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I went to New York, and on the train you would have some people like singing at the top of their voice, not even worried about anybody else, or someone else, you know, chatting to a random stranger. It was a culture shock for me, really. I have not experienced that before, but
And they like put their legs on the seats, you know.
yeah.
So they really don't care about, like, they do whatever they want. They're quite liberal, you know. Yes, I know. I also was in New York and also experienced that. But for me, it wasn't like, maybe not. It wasn't like a cultural shock, because for our countries also, if someone's listening music loudly, for example, in the subway or in public transport, it's not something extraordinary, you know. So everyone just listens to the music that someone so it's not something that people do. Okay, guys, and I want also you, because we are talking with James. Could you please also join us if you have any questions, probably right now? So, okay, so Natalia has a question.
Okay, so is the methodology of learning English different in England and Sweden? Good question. I don't actually know the answer to that. Obviously, when we learn English in Britain, we learn, well, from our parents. So we learn it in a slightly different way. So when I was younger, I didn't really learn the grammar rules. It just came naturally to me. Obviously, in Sweden, they learn English as a second language rather than a first. But also, I teach more academic writing, and I'm not a qualified teacher. I've come from my master degree into teaching, so I don't have the background to really answer that question very well, Natalia, unfortunately. Yeah.
But do you have, for example, the at our schools, like when we study Russian or Ukrainian, we study actually Russian and Ukrainian, so we have this like a subject at our school. Do you have the same at your school, like when you were studying in the UK?
Yes, we had we had English classes. I can't remember how many hours per week. And later on, when around age 15 onwards, it was divided into language and literature. So we would have to read Shakespeare or different poems and try to analyze the poems and discuss them. And then in the language classes, we'd do comprehension exercises, where we'd be reading a text and answering questions related to them. We'd also do a bit of speaking, a bit of writing, things like writing letters, writing different things. So that's the main way that we learned English, and we had a separate class just for English.
And is it popular to learn like the second language, the second foreign language? I mean, because for us, English right now is super important to know, right? Because they can actually communicate with all people with the help of English. So it's not our native language, right? So we are learning this as the second foreign language. What about, is it popular like in the countries where English is the prime language and the first language? Is it popular to learn the second one? I don't know, Spanish or French or German, or because Spanish is rather popular right now also. Yes, it has become popular actually for the past several years. So yeah, is it popular or not?
So it's compulsory in school to learn foreign language.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so from nowadays it would be even younger, probably when the students are 5 or 6, or the pupils are 5 or 6 years old. And in England, of course, we're so close to France, and culturally we're very well. We don't have the same culture, but we're very linked to France in many ways. So
Yeah.
French is the dominant language.
Yeah, I'm French.
If you go, of course, to the United States, then Spanish would be the more dominant language,
Yes,
I would imagine, because you have Mexico nearby. And then in Australia, I can't remember, but I don't think they learn French.
No, I don't think so.
But so it's compulsory, but I would say that we are not very motivated to learn other languages in Britain because everybody speaks English nowadays.
Exactly. That's what I want, because everyone speaks English. So what for? But it's but you know, when you come to France, and I've been saying this to my students also, when you come to France, for example, people, I can't say that French people like talking and like using English. Yes, they are more about like, if you come to France, please speak French.
Yes, exactly.
And when you address them in English, so they will reply to you in French.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people are good at English in France, actually, that I've noticed. I don't know why, maybe because they are just also like arrogant, and the France is the best country in the world. But I'm kidding, I'm just kidding. No, no offense. Just a joke. But in general, yeah, I've noticed this thing. And for example, in Germany, when I traveled to Germany and I wanted to practice German, and I started speaking in German, they replied me in English.
Same in Sweden as well. If you try to speak Swedish and you're not very good, then they just reply to you in English, and the conversation.
Why? If I want to practice Swedish, why should I? That I don't want to wait until I formulate the sentence. Please, where should I go? Or let's talk in English. And James, tell us please, why did you decide to change the country actually? Because I have never asked you this question. Why did you move from like your native country, from actually the UK to Sweden? What was the reason for that? And where is better actually for you? But you've been living for the past 5 years, so it's maybe the answer is obvious. But nevertheless, could you tell us please?
Yeah, of course. So I finished my bachelor degree in the UK in a place called Leicester, which is in the Midlands. So it's in the middle of the country, near to Birmingham, which is probably the biggest city. So about 2 hours north of London. And then I've always been interested in the world, so I thought, well, if I want to work abroad in the future, this is my best chance to go. Because if I stay for my master in the UK, then I'll probably have a network of contacts in the UK. First job will be in the UK, and then it becomes very difficult to move. So then I was looking, I wanted to study in the United States, but of course it's very, very expensive to study there, and I would have needed a scholarship. And I was out of the country at the time because I had an internship in the Pacific Islands, so in Fiji. This was many, many years ago.
Oh, you didn't tell me that you have. You didn't mention. You never mentioned this. I don't know this. Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So I worked there, and of course they also speak a lot of English there, which was very beneficial for me. But then I decided I could either study in Sweden or in Germany. And Sweden has free tuition for students who are members of the European Union. And I'd never been to Sweden before. It obviously has a very good reputation, so I decided to go. And yeah, I'm very happy here. I really like it. I'm in a small town, or in a small city called Lund, which is a student city. Obviously now I'm not a student, so it's a bit strange being a student city as a non-student. But the lifestyle is lovely. And very relaxed, a lot of fresh air, and lots of culture as well. And so I cycle everywhere. I don't need to take public transport to work. So my work is 5 minutes from where I live. Whereas I don't know if any of you have been to London before, but a lot of people love London. And I love to visit London. I think it's a fantastic city. No, but I couldn't live there. It's just too crowded, so expensive, quite polluted. You can feel the pollution in the air. And for me, especially from where my parents live, I would be commuting 1 hour and maybe an hour or an hour and a half every morning, and then an hour and a half back, which that's a lot of commuting to do just for a job.
And there is also a thing, like a stereotype, that the weather in London is bad, foggy and so on. So is it true? So there are no sunny days there, or there are, but like quite few. So
during summer, there are sunny days. Do I know the Queen? Yeah, I've met her a few times. We're good friends, but I haven't spoken to her recently. Yeah. Good question, Natalia. You can actually, well, you can't see the Queen, but you can visit Buckingham Palace. At least you can go outside of the palace where she lives if you go to London. So I haven't done it myself, but yeah, maybe if you went to London, you could come across the Queen, maybe eating her lunch or something. And you could, if there's a free chair, you could join her. What was your question again, Katja? Sorry.
My question was about the weather, but I have a second question also about the Queen. But actually, the Queen in Great Britain, she doesn't rule, right? So she can't participate in law-making acts, right? So it's not about she's not about legislation, correct?
I think that's correct. Yeah. So she has the ultimate power. So, for example,
Yes.
if the government wants to make a change to either like sorry, my English is failing me now. Let's call it the Constitution or any big changes, they have to ask permission from the Queen. But because she has more of a symbolic role, so it's a symbol rather than actual power, she will always accept basically what the government is asking.
Really? So
yes.
really? Because I was reading, so it's not true. That's information. So if she wants to make any amendments, actually the Parliament will accept this amendments, right?
Or not quite. So the Parliament would make amendments and go to her in order to put those amendments into force. I don't think she would make the amendments herself for the Parliament.
Okay.
The other way around, I think, but I could be wrong on that one. But it's mainly a symbolic thing nowadays. But yeah, I think she's very well respected within the Parliament and certainly among other heads of state. So she's treated she's definitely treated with more respect than the Prime Minister. But yeah.
Okay. And that was about, thank you very much. And that was about the weather, from the Queen to the weather. You see how different topics we're having today. So about the weather, is it true that it's, because I've never been to London yet, but I don't know how I will go there right now.
Yeah.
Because of the situation. And how many years will pass before
before you can go.
Yeah, so is it true that it's quite foggy here and there are no many sunny days? So how is it? Because I like sun, if there is.
Yeah. Well, it's not Italy, definitely. But there are more sunny days than you think. So during the summer, London is beautiful. There's quite a lot of sun, especially the last few years. It's been very sunny. When it comes to the autumn and the winter and then the early spring, it can be a bit cloudy and wet and foggy. But I think London is better than most areas in England, or most areas in the UK, sorry, because it's in the very south. So in the south, the weather is much better than in the north and in the west, because the prevailing winds come from the west across to the east. So of course, if you're on the west coast of the UK, then you get all of the rain that comes from the ocean, whereas in the southeast you're more protected, and you have that warm current, warm ocean current, keeps the temperature relatively mild. So the weather's not great, but it's better than in Sweden, I can say that. So
really?
Yeah.
Oh, so this is like a tick.
Yeah.
Let's put in the column of the advantages. Great, guys. Do you have any questions? Please just ask, because I have a lot. I usually have a lot of questions for students. Whenever we talk, I have a lot of questions to ask. So please, let's mute your mic and just participate in the discussion. Maybe you have something that you are interested in. Maybe you have something that you would like to know. Please join the club. Join our conversation. Okay.
Good question. So Katie says, to what extent do you support the idea of integrating English culture in your English language classroom? So because I teach in Sweden, we actually try to focus more on Swedish culture, because the students plan then to go to Lund University afterwards. But we try to bring Swedish culture in as much as we can, because ultimately, when I teach, I try to think, well, what does the student want to know? And so culture is a very important thing. If they show a real interest in Britain, then yes, definitely I will bring in some British culture. So, well, nothing that I've done with them so far, but I might bring in, for example, Mr. Bean, you know, the comedy. Have you heard of Mr. Bean? Katja, have you heard of Mr. Bean?
Mr. Bean, of course.
Yeah. So, I'd say he's a cultural icon.
But I don't know, do you find him funny?
I find him quite funny. I think he's universally funny because he doesn't speak. Everybody can relate to the things that he goes through. What else? That was a really good question, Katja. I'm trying to think. When I teach as well, I try to use some British publications. So if I'm teaching academic writing, I like to use The Economist, if you know the magazine, The Economist.
Yes, of course.
Because I think they write very well, and they also normally write in British English.
Sorry, James, sorry for interrupting for all my students. By the way, when we read the text, Irina especially, we also do it from The Economist, actually. So I also allow it. I subscribe to the
Good. Yes, I don't know if that answered your question, Katie.
Katie, thumbs up. So yes, maybe someone else. Okay, so I have a question then. That's a very good one, I think, because you're currently not in the UK. So do you have to fly back to apply for British citizenship, or so how is it going with this issue?
So because I'm already a British citizen, I don't need to fly back. It's easy to get a job in Sweden. I'll answer that in just a second, Natalia. So because I'm already a British citizen, I don't need to go back to apply for British citizenship. And I got my passport just before Brexit happened, so maybe 3 or 4 months before. That means my passport is valid for another 10 years. But I did that from Sweden, so I applied and they sent it in the post to me, so I didn't have to go back to get it. If you want British citizenship, so my uncle's wife is from Moscow, but if she wants British citizenship, she has to live in the UK, but they live in Switzerland instead. So it can be quite complicated to get British citizenship, even if you are, for example, married to a Brit, or if you live there for a certain period of time. So yeah, but for me, I can stay here, and any documents that I need, or anything I need from the UK, they can send it to me. So it's not.
And what about Sweden, vice versa? Do you need like anything? Do you need any visa or staying in Sweden, or no? So how is it going with your stay in Sweden then?
I don't need a visa because we have the same agreement. This is like a transition period for 1 year, even though we've officially left the European Union. So all of the agreements that were in place while the UK was part of the European Union still stand at the moment. we don't really know what's going to happen after the transition period. So I think we will only find out maybe a couple of months before it happens. But I'm quite lucky because I've been in Sweden for 5 years. I can apply for Swedish citizenship.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I see.
that's
For 5, that's a long period already.
yes. So I'm hoping to do that. Okay, I'll answer Natalia's question, then I'll answer Irina's question. Is it easy to get a job in Sweden? Natalia said. If you don't speak the language, quite difficult. If you speak the language, can be relatively easy. Not easy, but the job market is thriving. Oh, is it better to work or travel in Sweden? Oh, good question. I prefer to work in Sweden. I don't really like Stockholm that much, and I haven't been too far north in Sweden. Sweden is stretched very far. So from the southernmost point, where I am in Lund, to the northernmost point takes about 25 hours on the train. So it's a very big country compared to the United Kingdom. If you love the nature, if you love hiking, if you love lakes, if you love mountains and forests, then you'd love to travel through Sweden. And working in Sweden is very nice. The employers are excellent. They treat their workers very well. I have a brilliant boss, for example. Well, not that says that all bosses are brilliant, but yeah, in Sweden, I think they have a different attitude towards work. They're much more of a balance between work and life. So yeah, they have a good work-life balance. Okay, Irina says, have you ever been to Ukraine? Yes, actually, I was here in December. I was where you are, in December for the first time. As Katya mentioned, that I'm interested in the Eastern Partnership region. So I'd already been to Belarus and Georgia and Armenia. So Ukraine had always been on my list. So I came to Kiev, and then I spent New Year's Eve in Chernihiv, if I've said that correctly, with one of my friends, his grandmother. So I had a very authentic experience, I'd like to think, watching the president's address on the television, eating some classic Ukrainian New Year's Eve dishes, and yeah, looking at old photo albums from like the 1970s and 1980s. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and as Katya said, I was hoping to come back in April, and I'll probably come back, well, I'll almost certainly come back next year. Let's arrange a meeting in Kiev. Yeah, no problem, Natalia, of course. I'll be at the language arts school, so maybe Katya could allow me to help out in a class or something like that, if you want me to.
I'm very grateful for you all the time and for everything that actually you do. Guys, I'm really thankful to James for everything that he is doing for school and for you also, because I don't know, it's the time is a rather valuable resource, and when the person spends this time here, so I'm really grateful, just because it will not come back. It will not come back. And James spends it with us, so yeah, I'm very grateful, and think that you are grateful too for everything. But we have 6 minutes more, so maybe more questions.
So Marina's just asked a question. What is your favorite country for traveling? Okay, I'll try and keep it short. As Katya will say, I really liked Georgia. Thought it was so beautiful, and I loved the food there as well. I've been to Turkey. I went for work once, so I went to Istanbul for 2 days, and I loved it, and I would love to go back there. 5.
No, I mean, because I've been to Istanbul too, and I love it a lot. It's just amazing city.
So I would say those are my 2 favorites at the moment. Oh yeah, I went to the US. I didn't mind it, but I thought it was not as good as I hoped. So I wouldn't maybe go back there. Yes. But I would go back, but I need like 5 years to recover, I think. Before I'm ready to go again.
After cultural shock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, still can't get those that guy singing on the train out of my head.
But why Why do you like Georgia? I was in Georgia also in November, and I love it. Oh, there is also a question. Okay, let's answer like our students' question then.
Yes. Okay. Can you tell us the biggest difference that you've seen in culture between Brits and Ukrainians? Yeah, I can. Let me just think what I'm going to say. So I would say Ukrainians are probably a bit more direct than Brits. So if you wanted me to do something, you would say, James, do that, or please do that. In Britain, we would say, well, would you mind if you did this? Or excuse me, please, could you do so and so? Or you might say, if I'm giving you an order, for example, at work, or I might say, I'm wondering if maybe we could do it this way, which means do it this way and do it by 5 o'clock. So we're just direct, but we're very indirect when we give any orders and instructions. What else about Ukrainians and Brits? Well, I would say I don't know what Ukrainian humor is like. I think it's maybe not that different from Brits, but from British humor. But something that we're probably famous for is that we are very subtle with our humor, and we like to be very ironic. So we'll say one thing and mean completely the opposite. And sometimes, certainly, for example, in the United States or maybe in other countries, people don't really get our humor because they assume that what we say is what we mean, or when we don't. So that's something that's very different about British culture. What else? I don't really know, actually. Do you know? Also, okay, a couple more things. In Britain, we still do, although it's starting to change, but we have a class system that's quite prominent. And what I mean by that is people judge other people quite a lot by, for example, the way that they speak, maybe the schools that they went to, their class, where their position in society. And that's something that has existed for a long time, and I don't feel like it changes so slowly that it's not going to go away in the future. Whereas if you take the United States, for example, where we would judge people by class, and we try not to, I mean, the younger generation, we try not to, but we can't help it. In the United States, they judge people by maybe the amount of money that they make. So that's almost, whereas in England, we would never ever talk, or I don't think we would talk about money. You'd never ask someone what their salary was, for example, because it would be considered a bit rude. I don't know. What about Ukrainian culture though? I don't know. Do you have any ideas, Irina? Anything you're thinking?
But what about Irina? Do you have any maybe anything to say?
I have one friend. He used to live in Ukraine till 12, probably, or even 7, and then he moved to UK. And now he's like 25, like something like that. And he came to Ukraine, and he told me there are like 3 things that he mentioned. This difference, and the first thing was that he said that that he saw, for example, the woman who walking on the sidewalk, and he saw the car, and that was really rainy weather, and the wheel of the car just как обрызгает.
Like split the water, like from the pot.
Okay,
like,
sprayed the
like split the water to the woman, and the woman was really angry about that. And my friend, he was wondering, like, she knew that it was rainy, she knew that there was a lot of water, she just can take care about herself and go a little bit further from the road, but she didn't do this. And then she complained about this car, about this driver, that he did this.
Sorry, carry on. I interrupted you.
No, continue. No, I'm finished.
Okay. I haven't experienced that too much in the UK. One thing I would say regarding cars and people and pedestrians, something that we have that is very important to us is that when you cross the road and a car is waiting for you, you always say thank you. You put your hand up and say thank you. Whereas in Sweden and the rest of Europe, people just walk across the road, and I find it quite offensive if someone doesn't thank me for stopping. Same with, sorry, Irina, I feel like I'm going off topic here a bit, but especially the pleases and thank yous are very important in the UK, where they're not so important in the US or maybe in other countries. So even if somebody waits and allows you to go through the door first, then you would say thank you. If you touch someone, like you bump into them on the train, you'd always say sorry, even if it's not your fault, just to acknowledge that you saw that person, or that you acknowledge what just happened. What else?
By the way, we also have this gesture about the thank you. For example, drivers with each other also communicate with like thank you with the hand, or that can be like other gestures. That's a really cool information. I didn't know that in other countries they have the similar gestures.
Yes, yeah, we did.
But you know, in Ukraine we also have this thing that, for example, it's like from being polite from the both sides, from the pedestrians who are crossing the road, so they're crossing it faster. You know, that's not like slow like snails. You know, that everyone is waiting for a pedestrian, and from the driver, yes, just to stop in front of the pedestrian zone. So yeah, so it's like the interaction from both sides. From my side, that it has to be just, and then yes, you have to say thank you. But in Ukraine, usually we're just sorry, someone was calling me. Yes, sorry, I'm here. Yeah, like this. Guys, do you have any questions? Because it's already like the end of our webinar. It's 1 o'clock sharp, not sharp, it's even two past 1. Any questions? Maybe you have something to ask. This is the last chance. I'm not saying let's say it's not the last, but just for today. Last but not the least, let's say. It was an interesting dialogue. Thanks, Jean. Thanks a lot. And like someone else has written.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted that you are interested in listening, and I'm really pleased with the contribution you made as well. I thought we had a very good chat, so I'm happy to speak again, or you can write to me if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help with anything, really. So yeah, thank you very much.
I want to say thank you to you, James. Really big thanks that you spent this hour with us, and that I think that was efficient and really productive for our students also to talk to you and to get some new information. I do hope that we will organize more webinars in the future. Maybe this summer we'll also have it. It's all the time, it's very interesting for me to talk to you, because I open some new information all the time, so it's more and more to come. So thank you very much, and thanks for everything that you're doing and that you've been doing also today for us too. Thanks a lot. And, yes, let's stay tuned. Yes, keep in touch. Yes, and see you soon. Have a great Saturday, guys. You have a great Saturday too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And thank you very much, Katya. I really enjoyed it. And next time, I also have some words, like some special British phrases that we use. So we can do that in the next webinar if you want to.
Yeah, sure. That would be great.
Okay. All right. See you all and have a nice afternoon.
See you.
Bye.